Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 10-game slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. If you tuned in yesterday, I think we did pretty well overall. I had a lot of interest in the Indians. I went ahead and stacked them up. Jose Ramirez and Lindor both went deep. The only thing that was a little bit of a downside was Carlos Santana didn't go deep, and he was my home run call of the day. So I kind of struck out on that call, but I thought the Indians stacked it very well overall. Put a lot of runs on the board, and then I had mentioned having a lot of interest in Ian Anderson at a cheaper price, and that went well. The only thing that didn't go so well was the Josh Lindblom play. A lot of my lineups ended up playing both Anderson and Lindblom. And Lindblom, unfortunately, did not come through for us. And he was someone that I had mentioned, was a risky play, but I was willing to promote and take a chance on. And unfortunately, it just didn't work. Going up against the Tigers, I thought it was a good opportunity and good matchup to target the strikeout upside, even though he's been a little wild and he's been giving up hard contact, but it didn't pay off. So overall, pretty good. Alex Dickerson going deep 3 times. I had a lot of interest in him at his cheap price tag, and then I had to mention Marcell Ozuna as well, the right-handed bat in that Atlanta Braves lineup, and he went out and hit 3 home runs. So some high scores last night, some high-scoring hitters, and we're going to go ahead and start breaking down this slate today. Before I continue, if you've been tuning in, or if you're new to the channel and you're going to be tuning in for future videos, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bells so you won't miss any future videos I release. I'll be here all season long giving you guys some good plays and helping you to become better MLB DFS players. And then I also do have some Patreon packages. The link will be in the description where you get access to my pitcher data sheet that you see behind me, as well as even more sheets like hot hitter, StatCast data, team hitting data, bullpen data, as well as my cheat sheet where I break down my best plays by price tier, and my power rankings where I break down my best plays overall. You can follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS. And with that being said, enough of the promo stuff. Let's start breaking down this slate today. So as always, I like to go ahead and figure out the pitchers we're going to want to play in our lineups, and I do that by sorting my sheet by K rate because this is fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. And when looking at the guy that tops the slate today in strikeout rate, there's really no surprise. Max Scherzer, absolute stud. Top pitcher in the league. He comes in with a 34.8% K rate. Against righties, he's got a 38.6% K rate, and then against lefties, he's got a 31% K rate. So, it's Max Scherzer. He does give up some hard contact from time to time, but we don't care because of that strikeout rate pushing, 40%. And he gets to take on the Philadelphia Phillies today, who is the only, it's the only downside, really, is this matchup because these Phillies really haven't been striking out a lot. But I have a feeling Max Scherzer can change that because he's pretty much matchup proof, and anyone he takes on, he can go out there and get some strikeouts. So, no doubt in my mind, Max Scherzer, top play of the slate. You're going to want to get him in your lineups if at all possible, and as we go along, we'll figure out if there's expensive bats we're going to need to pay up for, or we're putting Max Scherzer in our lineups. And I'm guessing we're going to be putting Max Scherzer in our lineups because anytime he takes the mound, you're probably going to want to play him. But moving further along, the second guy I'm going to mention is that Dinelson Lamet. Lamet's got a 33.3% K rate overall, and then the righties, he has a 37.1% K rate, and against lefties, it drops down to a 30.4. So just really good across the board, but specifically against right-handed hitters, he really excels at striking those righties out. And when looking at the matchup today, he's taking on the Los Angeles Angels, who do have their fair share of righties in their lineup. They're only rolling out, it looks like they're only projected to roll out 3 lefties in that lineup. And the lefties they're rolling out really aren't proven names outside of Shohei Ohtani. So Dinelson Lamet at 9.9K on DraftKings, he's a second option I'm rolling out today. He comes in as a 180 favorite, and he's got a ton of strikeout stuff. So it's definitely someone you have to have interest in. Moving further along, we do have a lot of pitching options today. So it's interesting because typically you would say, go ahead and throw Max Scherzer in. But as I continue, the more and more, I'm not sure if we have to, because we might be able to play like 2 guys in the mid to upper range that both have really high strikeouts or strikeout rates, and then fit in some elite bats. So I think those are the 2 approaches you can take. But then Max Scherzer as well, as I mentioned, he's obviously top pitcher in the league, and maybe we can fill in that second pitcher spot on DraftKings with the salary relief guy. So just something to think about as we go along here. But Charlie Morton is another guy. He's got a 29.3% K rate, 24.4% against righties, and then it kicks up to a 34.5 against lefties. So he actually really excels in the strikeout category against left-handed hitting. I'm looking at the matchup today. He's taking on the New York Yankees, who are rolling out, predominantly a right-handed heavy lineup. They do have, 4 lefties in there, so it's kind of a 50-50 split, but looking like, majority righties by 1. But yeah, the strikeout rate's there, and then when you look at the price tag on Charlie Morton, he drops down to an 8.5K price tag compared to some of these other options we've discussed. So Charlie Morton, another guy to have interest in. And to be honest with you, as I'm going along here, pitching on the slate is absolutely stacked. We have a ton of options, and I think really it's going to come down to the bats you want to play, because I do think as we're scrolling through and looking at all these options, we have a ton of good options. So we're going to probably want to pick the guys in the highest strikeout rate matchups, and then we're going to want to play guys that we can fit in our lineups and then still get the bats that we like. So a ton of options, and I think that's a good thing, but it's just something to keep in mind, because there's a ton of guys with high strikeout rates up here, and then when we're looking at the salaries, they're all kind of closely tied as well. I mean, looking at the slate overall, all these guys are in like the 8 to 9 to 10K range, and they're all up there in strikeout rates. So definitely going to want to keep an eye on the Vegas lines. Definitely going to want to target the favorites. And with that being said, a guy for salary relief, we do have to mention guys on the cheap end to be able to help us out with some salary relief for bats. And that guy today is going to be Tristan McKenzie, the young prospect. He comes in with a 34.2% K rate. Now, we're only dealing with a 10 innings pitch sample size, but he's looked really impressive early, and he gets to take on the Kansas City Royals, which is a pretty good matchup. And he's got a 50% K rate against righties, and then against lefties, it drops down to a 20% K rate, and the slugging and the hard contact and the fly ball stuff has been bad. So, don't want to get carried away with analyzing that just because it's only a 10 innings pitch sample size. So, I'm not going to go guarantee you he's going to struggle against lefties his whole career, because we're only dealing with 10 innings. But one thing that has been there is a strikeout rate, and he's also been a kid who, he seems to be, he seems to have a lot of promise, but every time he gets an opportunity, he gets hurt. So it's really just been injuries that have plagued his career. And so when I see a guy like that, I know the talent's there. I'm willing to take a risk on him. And the strikeout rate's been there. And then the Kansas City Royals aren't the most threatening team. And then to top it all off, when you're looking at the Vegas lines, he is a 174 favorite. And he comes in at a 6.7K price tag. So, that's a big drop down from these pitchers that we've been discussing so far in the 9 to 10K range. So he would be my salary relief guy today. And to be honest with you, I don't really know if I would go with anyone else for salary relief, because, I mean, 1, everyone's in like the 8 to K range, and then 2, anyone else that's down there really isn't good. The only other guy I would mention probably is Jordan Montgomery at 7.5K, and he gets to take on the Tampa Bay Rays, which isn't exactly the best matchup. So at 7.2K, and with his numbers with a 20.4% K rate, he does do really well in the fly ball, the walk, and the hard hit rate category, but the strikeout stuff, I don't really know if it's there to be worthy of playing that price tag when you can just drop down to a McKenzie for, 700 cheaper or so. So I'm going to go ahead and promote McKenzie over Montgomery, and when looking at the prices, it's actually 800 cheaper. So definitely drop down to McKenzie and get that salary relief there. Then moving further along, we'll go on to the bats. So clearly a lot of pitching options, but I also do think there's some good targets for the bats when looking at the slate, because there's definitely some pitchers that aren't so good. So first on the slate, the guy we're going to target is that Colby Allard. Looking at Allard's numbers on my sheet, you can see it's just right across the board. He's been very bad. He's got a 6.18 ERA, a 5.45 SIERA. The walk rate's terrible. The hard hit rate's terrible. Against righties, he's got a 417 slugging. But then against lefties, it's even worse. It drops down to a 483. So just bad against both sides of the plates, or both sides of the plate. And he gets to take on the Houston Astros, who definitely have some guys that can slug left-handed pitching. The only downside is they don't have Bregman in the lineup right now. But with a 5.5 implied team total, you can definitely target some of these Astros. And my favorite targets are going to be George Springer, Jose Altuve, Yulieski Gurriel, and Carlos Correa. You know, the right-handed hitters that mash lefties. And then you got Diaz and Martin Maldonado at the bottom of the lineup. And I should mention that Diaz is only 2.2K, so really good salary relief option there because he does crush lefties pretty well. And he's borderline minimum salary, so if he cracks the lineup, he's definitely a big-time salary relief option. But the main guys are definitely Springer, Altuve, Gurriel, and Correa. You know, those are the top four, and those are the guys I would want to include in my stacks, if at all possible. Moving further along, guys we want to target. Second on the list is Julio Teheran. He gets to take on the red-hot San Diego Padres, kind of story of the year. Red and orange across the board once again. You know, even Allard has him beat by having one yellow in the fly ball category, so Julio Teheran not good against righties. He struggles, and then against lefties, it gets even worse in the ground ball, the fly ball, and the walk rate's very bad, but the slugging drops. So a little bit contradicting there, but overall, we just want to target him, and we want to target him with the top hitters in this lineup, and we want to target him with the guys with power. So this San Diego Padres team just added Mitch Moreland. It's looking like he's going to be in the lineup, and yeah, they just got even more dangerous. So ton of interest in this Padres stack today. They have a 5.41 implied team total, coming in as a 180 favorite. And the guys I'm going to have interest in are definitely Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. And the 2 and 3 spot, you know, they're 1A and 1B sluggers. And then you got Trent Grisham at the top of the order, Eric Hosmer, Mitch Moreland, Will Myers. Honestly, have interest 1 through 9. I think this is a great stack. And I think Teheran's going to have some issues with this San Diego Padres team. And then the only other thing I would mention is that the Angels stadium actually is a pretty good hitting environment. And I think it doesn't really get looked at as one by most people in the majors or most people that play DFS. It's not really a stadium you go to and you're like, oh, it's a great hitting environment. But statistically, it actually is a pretty good hitting environment. So just throw that in there. And then lastly, they are on the road. So they're going to get a guaranteed top of the ninth hitting appearance. Even if they're up by 8 runs, they still get to go up there and hit again in the top of the ninth. So we always like to target that. That's always good stuff. Next offense that we want to target is the Minnesota Twins. The Minnesota Twins have a 4.95 implied run total, and they get to take on Ronaldo Lopez, who, when looking at his numbers, once again, pretty bad across the board. Against righties, he really struggles, and then against lefties, he struggles even more. The ground ball and the fly ball category, you know, he gives a lot of fly balls, and we're going to like targeting these Minnesota Twins today, especially Max Kepler at the top of the order. And then it looks like Josh Donaldson, you know, he's going to be coming back and making his presence felt in the lineup again. So at only 3.2K, he's a guy you're going to have a ton of interest in. I'm going to play a ton of Josh Donaldson today. At only 3.2K, I can tell you that much if he's in that 2 spot. And he's probably going to be chalky, but I don't even care if he's that cheap and he's in that 2 spot because that's just a great overall play. You got Jorge Polanco, Nelson Cruz, Eddie Rosario, Miguel Sano. And then Alex Avila at the bottom of the lineup is a catcher with some power that you can toss in there. And then you got Luis Arias as a salary relief guy, but I would not recommend playing him in tournaments just because I think his upside's kind of capped. But with that being said, he is cheaper on the cheaper side, so he can complete a stack. But you're not going to really be getting any home runs for him. It's going to be singles and doubles and RBIs and runs that'll rack up your fantasy points from him. So if you're stacking the Twins, that makes sense. But he's low on my order as far as priority. If I'm picking my top guys to stack, it's probably going to be that 1 through 5 range. So Kepler to Rosario, Kepler, Donaldson, Polanco, Cruz, and Rosario. Those are the guys that I definitely have a lot of interest in today. Moving further along, Spencer Turnbull also takes the mound, and he has to take on the Milwaukee Brewers. Less than impressive across the board. And the Detroit bullpen isn't good either, so I always like to go ahead and target these Tigers whenever possible. And Turnbull, you know, I'm looking at his splits. He's just pretty much bad across the board, and not righties or lefties really stand out. It's pretty consistently underwhelming. And when looking at the Milwaukee Brewers run total. They have a 5.01 implied run total. And they do have some guys in the middle of this order that with some power, and then some guys that are going to offer some good salary relief. So I'm probably looking in the 2 through 6 range today, and then throwing in Omar Narvaez as a catcher as well. So Yelich, Hira, Smoke, Gamble, and Avisail Garcia. And Avisail is only 3.3K, so I like him. And then Ben Gamble is only 2.7K. So those two guys are cheap, and they'll round out your stacks and allow you to pay up for guys like Christian Yelich and Keston Hira in the 5K range. So definitely another stack to have interest in today. And the next stack that I'm going to move to that I haven't mentioned yet and is really high on my list because Derek Holland is not good is the Chicago Cubbies. Cubbies have a 5.72 implied run total. And when looking at Derek Holland's numbers, the hard hit rate is very bad in splits-wise. This is where I get real interested because he has a 530 slugging giving up to right-handed hitters. He has a 47.5% hard hit rate and a 369 WOBA. So he's just terrible against right-handed pitchers. He's god-awful. I love targeting Derek Holland. The only thing is he's very good against lefties, so I wouldn't target the lefties in this lineup. Outside of the fact that he might get kicked out of this game early and then you get to target the bullpen, but that would have to be the thought process because against lefties himself, he's very good. But these righties that slug lefties, I have a ton of interest in today. So Chris Bryant tops my list at third base. I have Javi Baez very high on my list. Wilson Contreras, Jose Martinez, Cameron Maybin. Steven Souza is a guy that's been historically very bad against left-handed pitching. He's very splitsy against righties. So, I would say maybe not, but the fact that he's only 2K, I definitely still have a lot of interest in him. And then you got Nico Horner at the bottom of the lineup, who's also only 2K. So these Cubbies are really providing you with everything today. They provide you with guys that crush left-handed pitching. They provide you with salary relief. And they provide you with a very good matchup taking on Derek Holland. So a ton of interest in the Cubs as a stack. And I think I made that very clear. But, they're really high on my list today. They're probably at the top of my list. And I'm going to love, specifically Chris Bryant and Javi Baez. And then Wilson Contreras in the catcher spot. But pretty much every single righty in this lineup. I can't talk about these Cubbies enough. So play some Cubbies in your lineups today because I'm loving the spot for them. And then last on the list, we have a couple more spots to go over. I'm going to mention 2 more stacks. 2 more games, I should say, because the first one we have to mention is this Atlanta Braves Red Sox game, and there's no line out, so I'm going to be interested in seeing that. But these 2 pitchers squaring off are less than impressive, and they're both left-handed pitchers taking on predominantly right-handed heavy lineups. So I think this game is going to have a lot to offer today. When we see the Vegas lines, I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty high game total. And guys, we're going to want to target this Mike Kickham. Kid hasn't pitched in the, I call him Kid. He hasn't pitched in the majors since like 2013, 2015, I believe I was looking at earlier. So I actually didn't even include him on my sheet because I try to use mostly recent data the last 2 years. And he hasn't been in the majors for a while. So while I don't have stats to break down for him, I would say we can go ahead and assume, he's not the most polished pitcher, and the Red Sox are bringing him up to just throw him out there as a spot start. And so I think we're going to see a high implied run total, and I think we're going to have a ton of interest in these right-handed hitters on the Atlanta Braves. Dansby Swanson, Marcell Ozuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Adam Duvall, Austin Riley, all these guys can crush left-handed pitching. And then not to mention the Red Sox bullpen has been less than impressive. So I think we're going to have a lot of interest in these Braves. We just got to wait for the Vegas lines to come out. But I have a feeling that the Vegas lines are going to back up what I've said so far, unless we get a pitching change and they decide they're not going to roll out this kid. And then Robbie Erlin taking on the Red Sox. We do have some numbers to work off with Robbie, and he's just been below average. Not terrible, but below average. And against righties, he gives up a 432 slugging, and then against lefties, he steps it up a little bit. So your classic left-handed pitcher that's worse against righties. And I think we are going to have some interest in these Sox once this Vegas line comes out. We can target guys like JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Christian Vasquez, Michael Chavis, the top prospect, and Bobby Dalbec. And then Jose Peraza would be a decent salary relief option, but there are some other guys at the second base position that I've already gone over that I have a lot of interest in, so I'm not sure if he's going to be a priority today. We're going to have to wait for the Vegas lines on that game, but I have some interest in that game. I have a feeling when they come out, they're going to be a decent run total. And the last spot of the day that I have to mention is going back to the well and these Cleveland Indians that I had talked about last night. They get to take on Jacob Junis, and we're looking at Junis's numbers. You can see, he's less than impressive, a lot of orange going on. And then he's red in the hard contact category. And then against right-handed hitters specifically, he gives up a lot of slugging, hard contact, and WOBA. And then against lefties, he improves. So he's a little bit reverse splitsy, as we like to call it. He struggles more so against righties, but he struggles against both sides of the plates. So I think we can stack up this team, throw in the elite hitters like Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor, Carlos Santana. But then Franmil Reyes is a top priority because, as I mentioned, he does struggle against right-handed bats, and Franmil Reyes crushes baseballs, and he is from the right-handed side of the plate. So, Franmil is definitely a very good option today for these Cleveland Indians, and they're my last stack to mention. And then they do have some good salary relief options at the bottom of the order as well, which seems to be a theme in this the slate. And as I'm going along here, I think we can either pay up for bats, or we can use these salary relief guys at the bottom, or we can maybe throw in a mix and then pay up for these good pitching options we've talked about, which is good stuff because at the beginning of the video I had talked about I didn't know how that was going to go as far as paying up, and there's a lot of good options. So it looks like I think we can mix in some elite bats, some salary relief guys, and some pay up options and all that fun stuff. So that is my overall breakdown of the slate. Quick little brief overview. Charlie Morton against the Yankees, I think, is a good pitching option. The Chicago Cubs, I have a ton of interest in. Target these righties in Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Wilson Contreras, and so on. I even like the guys at the bottom of the order. Max Scherzer is an absolute stud, and you have to target him every time he takes the mound. He's 10.4K on DraftKings, and he's our top option. This Atlanta Braves-Red Sox game, I have a feeling he's going to have a high game total, and we're going to want to keep an eye on that. And we're going to want to target the righties with power in both of these lineups. The Milwaukee Brewers, mainly the center of this lineup, taking on Spencer Turnbull, you can have interest in as a stack. The Cleveland Indians, I have a ton of interest in, specifically Franmil Reyes himself. Franmil's in a great matchup, and I really like him. Houston Astros, you could have interest in up and down because they're taking on Colby Allard, who has been very bad. And we're really looking at these righties. Springer, Altuve, Gurriel, Correa are my top options. And then I had mentioned a good salary relief option in Diaz at the bottom of the order. And then you got Martin Maldonado, who also crushes lefties, and he fills in the catcher spot for you. Minnesota Twins, you got to have a ton of interest in. If Josh Donaldson is back, I'm going to love him at 3.2K. That's way too cheap. Max Kepler at the top of the order is a priority. Jorge Polanco, Eddie Rosario, I like a ton. The Boomstick is also a top option, but he is 6.1K, so you're going to pay a lot for him. And then you got Alex Avila in the catcher spot at the bottom. Dinelson Lamet for the San Diego Padres is a very good pitching option today. And I'm definitely going to target him as a 180 favorite. And then lastly, I hadn't even touched on them because, we only have so much time to go over the slate. But Zach Gallen and Walker Buehler, you can definitely throw in as pitching options as well because they have the high strikeout rate and stuff as well. But we're just going to want to go ahead and break down the matchups, who's taking on the team with the highest strikeout rate, and then factor in stuff like umpire data and all that fun stuff later in the day. So if you're a Patreon member of mine, make sure you're checking out the team hitting data sheet. Make sure you're checking out these matchups. Make sure you're checking out the Discord chat for updates from me later in the day. As the pitching is very clumped up today, and we do have a lot of options in the same price range you're going to have to pick from. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my home run call of the day. It's a segment I do every single day. If you've been tuning into the video, I am 7 for 14 now, so I'm 500. And I seem to be going back and forth, home run, then not home run, then home run. So today's going to be home run because yesterday we didn't hit it, so today we are. And my home run call of the day today is going to be that and Javi Baez taking on the lefty and Derek Holland. Javi hasn't really been hot to start the season, but I can tell you one thing, he's going to crush his lefties. He always does. And looking at Derek Holland's numbers and his struggles against right-handed hitting, as always, I like to go back and show you guys just to back up my reasoning. When looking at Holland's numbers, not good across the board, and then against righties, he's very bad. 530 slugging, 47.5% K rate, 47.5% hard hit rate, and then a 369 WOBA. Terrible, not good, very bad, but very good for our lineups because we get to play some Chicago Cubs righties today and be very happy. So go ahead and play some Javi Baez today. He's going deep. He's my home run call of the day, and that is what I will sign off with. Go ahead and leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell if you'll be tuning in for future videos, which I think you'll want to because we've been killing it. We've been doing good. And I think if you've been watching the videos or if you're a Patreon member of mine, you're happy, and we're just going to keep it rolling. So with that being said, play some Chicago Cubs, play Javi Baez. I wish you all the best of luck tonight, and have a good one.